Hey everyone! Welcome back to my channel. This is Alrence, a licensed real estate sales agent in New York City. Thank you so much to everyone who watched my previous videos, and now I'm very much motivated to do more videos for you, for real estate tips, for financial tips. So keep on subscribing and keep on watching. In this video, I will cut the chase and will let you know the things you need to know to successfully rent the dream apartment of yours. The first thing is that you need to know your budget. Most of the time, people have unrealistic expectations when they are coming into the city. They think that their budget with the state that they're coming from is the same space that they will get when they come here in the city. But most of the time, it's not the case. You have to have a budget to keep you grounded. Most of the time, based on my experience too in renting so many people in the city, what I realize is that people typically spend more than their budget after seeing a lot of inventory and comparing walk-ups, condos, co-op, and townhomes. So if you're asking me, Alrence, what's the typical annual salary required to secure an apartment in New York City? My answer is it should be 40 times the rent, which is, for example, you want an apartment that costs $3,000, you need to make $120,000 because 3,000 times 40 equals $120,000. I know it's a lot of money required, and I feel you if you're a student or you're a new hire and you don't make 40 times the rent requirement. Don't lose hope because there are several other options for you. First is that you can have a guarantor in the US. It doesn't matter which state they are in. It really depends on the landlord, but most of the time, if they're in the US, they're good. As long as they make 80 times the rent. Let's go back to the example of $3,000. So if you wanted a $3,000 apartment, 3,000 times 80, so they need to make $240,000, which is a lot of money. So a lot of them are asking, what if my guarantor is self-employed? If your guarantor is self-employed, you just need to ask your guarantor's tax accountant to give you a copy of the tax returns that he filed last year. And if you don't make the 40 times requirement, or you don't have any guarantor within the US, let's say for example, you're a student coming in internationally, or you're a person coming in from another country other than the US, and then you don't make 40 times the rent. Do you think you can still rent an apartment in New York City without having a guarantor? Yes, of course, because there are other options such as third-party companies who will help you to secure an apartment in the city. So my favorites are Insurance, Guarantors, and Rhino. Just please keep in mind that these third-party companies will usually charge you at least a month's rent for securing the apartment. So for example, apartment's rent is $3,000, then you need to pay them around $3,000 too. You just need to double check with them the rates, of course, because it's still up to them. But in my experience, most of the time, it will be around that price. And also, landlords have preferred partners, so you need to double check with the landlord if they approve this third-party company. So for example, landlord ABCD, do you work with Insurance, the Guarantors, or Rhino? Because I wanted to work with them and they will help me secure the apartment. And if they say yes, then good for you. You will be approved with the apartment as long as you complete the other requirements of the landlord. And the most important thing that you need to consider, remember, in renting an apartment is your credit score or your guarantor's credit score. Here in the US, it's one of the most important things, credit score, because it will help you in your future if you want to apply for a loan, if you want to apply for a car, if you want to apply for a credit card that will help you start a business. It's very, very important that you take care of it. So what if your credit score is bad? What should I do? First, it's either you find a guarantor that will take care of you, and second, you can go to a third-party company too and tell them or explain them what happened. Or you know what, sometimes I have some clients who are qualified and make 40 times the rent who got approved just because they were honest with the landlord. They explained their situation, why it happened, why their credit score is so low. So sometimes the landlords will understand. So the second factor that you need to consider is that you need to know your location. New York City is a very big city, and you can't just go to all places and look around unless you've got so much time in the world, right? you need to at least narrow it down to 2 or 3 locations that you're most comfortable with. So for example, you wanted to live in Midtown East or Midtown West or Upper East Side or Upper West Side, or you wanted to live at some parts of downtown, or if you wanted to go to Brooklyn or at Queens. So I suggest to ask your friends or do your research for you to be familiar with the neighborhoods here in the city, because every neighborhood has its own personality. That should be a good start for you and your broker for you to be able to find an apartment right away. Because if you're looking in all different places in the city, you'll waste your time, and then you'll get so much choices, and then you don't know what to do anymore. You'll get paralyzed with your decision making. So I suggest to write the things that are most important to you and find a neighborhood that fits it well. The third thing that you need to know is when is your move-in date. The best time to search for apartment will be a month at least from your move-in date. So for example, your move-in date is August 15, at least by July 15 or like by the end of July is a good time to search. Because you know why? Most of the time, if you search too early, you'll end up getting disappointed because landlords won't approve you if you're too far out. So put yourself in the landlord's position, right? If you are the landlord and someone comes in who wants to apply for an apartment and her move-in date is August 15, and then you find someone whose move-in date is July 30. Of course, they will get the one that's move-in ready like 15 days from now instead of the other one who's moving in August 15 or August 30, because they'll lose at least 1 month of rent if they get you. So just keep in mind that if you want to rent an apartment, so look at least a month from your move-in date. Also, there's no point of like shortlisting buildings. For example, you saw this building 2 months ago, and after 2 months, you're ready to rent an apartment, and then it's already rented. Like the specific floor plan, the specific view that you like is not there anymore. So in the end, you get disappointed and you ended up wasting your time, and you keep your hopes high in living in that building. Fourth one that you need to know is that you need to know your apartment preference. Are you looking for an apartment that's close to the subway? Are you looking for an apartment that's facing east, north, south, or west? Or are you looking for an apartment with an in-unit washer or dryer, or at least laundry in the building? Are you looking for an elevator building, doorman building, or a walk-up? Those things like your preferences are very, very important. You need to shortlist it right away because it will make your search easier. If you're working with a broker, you'll both save your time and you'll find an apartment way faster compared to others who are looking for the same criteria. Another thing that I wanted to discuss with you guys is what is a no-fee and what is a fee apartment. A no-fee apartment is an apartment that the landlord will pay the broker, which is me, for bringing a qualified client like you. If it's a with fee apartment, then it means that you need to pay the broker for helping you find a great apartment that you signed up for. It's very, very simple. Most of the time, the broker will charge you 1 month's rent. Well, at least for me, or 15% of the annual's rent. For example, you like an apartment worth $3,000, right? And then times 12 equals times 0.15. And that's the commission that you pay the broker. So most of the time, where is this coming from is that the broker is sharing the commission with another broker. So for example, you like an apartment in Midtown East, and then I represented you, and then there's another broker who represented the landlord. So we will share the commission 7.5 and 7.5, and that's where the 15% is coming from. So another thing that you need to know is what's the gross rent and what's the net rent. So the gross rent is typically defined the actual rent that you pay in the apartment, and the net rent is the total savings that you get after the month free. So how you compute it is that if your rent is $2,700 and the landlord will give you 1 month free on a 13-month lease. So you need to times $2,700 to 12, and then you need to divide it to 13 months because remember, your lease is 13 months. So times 12 divided by 13. So it will end up to $2,492, and that's the net rent that they advertise. That's how you compute it. So now you know the difference between the gross rent and the net rent. Remember, whenever you look at listings and then it shows net rent, then you need to check how many months free is included. So now you know, if you see listings that shows net rent, then you know how to compute it to see how much the gross rent is if they don't advertise it at all. Just please remember and keep in mind that net rent are just the concessions given to you by the landlord to let you inside the building. But remember that after your lease, that the renewal will start from the gross rent. So if your apartment is 2,700, then when you renew your lease, if they wanted to increase it, it will start from 2,700. And last but not the least, you need to know the typical requirements that's asked by the landlord for you to be able to secure an apartment in New York City. So first, you need to have your employment letter, which states how much you earn for the year and when is your start date. The second is that you need to have your pay stubs. So if you are self-employed, then you need to have your tax returns with you. And the third one is that you need to have your bank statements ready. Of course, the most recent one, the better. The fourth one is that you need your ID. And then the fifth one is that you need to have your landlord reference letter. And it's okay if you are just moving out from your parents' home, that's fine, the landlord will understand. So basically the things that you need to prepare even before looking at apartment, because as you know, here in New York City, it's a very, very fast demanding market, and it will give you an edge if you are prepared with these documents. So if you find something that you like, you can easily fill up the application form, give it to your broker, and the broker will send it to the landlord. So for students, it's typically your ID and your enrollment form. So now you've reached the end of my video. Congratulations, because you're one step away from securing that dream apartment of yours. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions regarding your apartment search, please feel free to comment down below or look at my profile because my contact and email address is there so I can help you with your apartment search.